Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today we have Pete Freeman on. Pete, welcome.
Thank you, man. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation too. We chatted last week on your YouTube channel, Crunch Time Coaching, which we'll link to the show notes so people can check that out. And we've chatted a few times this year actually, and our audiences have both enjoyed a lot of those conversations. So it's good to get you introduced a little bit more to my audience for people who aren't familiar with you. But we've got one of the biggest events coming up of the year for club level doubles players. And it's one of my favorite events that I've presented at a few times now, and it's TennisCon 8. So I want to start out for people listening. We're about to share 8 different doubles lessons from the previous years of TennisCon. But before we get to those doubles lessons, Pete, if you can share with us what to expect this year from TennisCon 8.
Yeah, so TennisCon 8, and that's why we're going to go through 8 tips. I'm really excited that we're in our 8th year, and I get more excited about it every year because it's about helping totally obsessed tennis players. I find that the people who really get into it and get excited, they're not your normal tennis player. They really love, they eat, breathe, sleep tennis, and so really fortunate to be able to work with people like yourself and Gigi Fernandez and Ryan Reedy from 2 Minute Tennis. And you can pretty much just think of anybody who's got a pretty good following online who gives a great value, and they're part of TennisCon. So it's, these passionate tennis coaches connecting with passionate players, trying to help them in all areas of tennis where they have a technical problem, a problem with strategy, if they need to get fitter on or off the court. It's all there in TennisCon, and that's the beauty of it.
hmm Yeah, and it's like for people listening, it's just really a no-brainer to sign up for. It's so how it works, and we'll include a link in the show notes. You enter your email, it's totally free to sign up, and you get access to it's like 40 plus coaches. Is that right, Pete?
That's correct.
So 40 plus coaches. The lessons are released over the course of a week. You get access for 48 hours. Is that right?
That's true. Yep.
Okay, so you get free access for 48 hours, and then if you want lifetime access, you can pay a small fee for that. I think in the past, before the times of the internet, I think I mentioned this last time when we chatted, uh, this would have costed thousands of dollars to get access to this many coaches, and it's so cool that you're able to do an event like this. So, anyways, we're going to link to that in the show notes, and then I think what we were talking about beforehand, you've got something you wanted to talk about with the upgrades as well.
That's right. So if people want to get a lifetime access pass to the program to where they can watch all 40 plus master classes, they can do that. And then I always, on the next page, offer some extra goodies for a steep discount. This year, I'm doing the same thing. I think my offers are even better than ever. And because we've been so devastated with the hurricanes, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, I mean, just outright devastation. And even one of our legends of TennisCon, Gigi Fernandez, who's won 17 Grand Slam titles, she's probably going to lose her home from these hurricanes. If not, it's going to be basically building her house from scratch. So either
hmm
way, she's been devastated, and she says it's felt like a death. And one of her children, her son, said, "Hey, everybody's suffering in our community. I found this what it's called Metropolitan Ministries, which they help people with food, shelter, clothing, basically helping people get back on their feet and get back to some kind of normal life." So I decided that this year, 100% of the proceeds from our basic bonus, that if you want to go for that, you can be giving and donating to this very, very important cause at the moment. And even one of the bonuses will include a day, if you can make it, to come out and train with me. And that's basically, but I'm not making anything from that. It's 100% going to this charitable organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and we're listening. This won't be released till the 23rd, but we're recording this on October 10th. So the hurricane just hit literally last night.
Yeah.
Milton did. I know the other one hit last week. So that's an awesome way to contribute and get a lot for your tennis game. So
Yeah. And just one
um,
last thing on that. I mean, the
yeah,
news moves so fast. And so, maybe in a couple of weeks, they're still not talking about this story. But when you go through what these people are going through, this is going to take them,
mm,
certainly months, some people years. Some people will never recover from this and get back to what they once had. So,
yeah,
especially because Florida is one of those states where it's very hard to get insured for your home. So, just because it might be out of the news cycle by the time you're watching this video, I mean, people are still suffering really hard out there.
yeah, 100%. All right, so let's get into these 8 tips from TennisCon. So when we decided to do this episode, I said, can you go back through your doubles presentations and pick out your 3 to 5 favorite doubles lessons or presentations from all 7 or now this year 8 tennis cons over the years? And you said, I don't want to do just 3 to 5. I want to do 8 of them. So let's start with number 1, Gigi's 1, 2, 3 poaching formula. What is
Yeah,
that?
thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many great lessons that it was pretty much impossible to narrow it to three. So I really love this from Gigi, where she says that she teaches her students when we think about a poach, we typically think about a planned poach. First one, the server says, "Okay, you're gonna serve. I'm gonna go." That's a planned poach. That's the way we traditionally think about it. Gigi
Mhm.
says basically you can plan a poach out within the first 3 shots, and that kind of just makes you less nervous about poaching. You can go on ball number 1, ball number 2, ball number 3. So you basically tell your partner that, and then when you go, your partner's automatically going to back you up. So even if you leave at the wrong time, which a lot of people are fearful of, like, what if I leave at the wrong time? Then we get burned down the line. We
Mhm.
know what ball you're going to poach on. So then you automatically back up your partner on the other side. And you can do this on the return or the serving side. And I thought that that's a really unique thing. And it's like such a no brainer. It's like, why haven't we thought of this before? I've never heard of
Yeah.
this before. Gigi talked about this 1, 2, 3 poaching formula. And by the way, Gigi's won 17 Grand Slam titles, but it's not like she is going, okay, this is what worked on the Pro Tour, so I want you guys to try this. She started to work at a club, I believe, in Connecticut. I think I have the state right. And she just saw the way that things were being coached and, what was working, what wasn't working at club level tennis. So her method is about helping recreational players. And the stuff that she puts into her method works at the recreational level, not necessarily at the pro level.
hmm Yeah, she's been on my podcast before. It's been a while. I should probably have her on again, but it's still to date. We just hit our 200th episode a few weeks ago, and to date, it's still one of the most popular episodes. I think it's like top 3 or top 5 or something like that. Her tips for recreational club players are amazing. So I've seen that before at the pro level a little bit, where it'll be the server's partner or returner's partner. I actually asked Caroline Dolehide this a few years ago. I saw her signal when she was the returner's partner. She signaled 2 behind her back. And I asked her after the match, what does the 2 mean? And she said, oh, I'm going after the second ball. So I'm not poaching on the return. I'm poaching after the return +1.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a really, really good concept that I think can work at all levels. So number 2 is Jorge's doubles dance. What is that?
Yeah. So it's one of the hardest things, I think, for recreational players to get comfortable with, as far as looking for when you're either on the serving side of the ball or on the returning side, and you're the person up, not the person back, and there's a cross court rally. It's hard to get into that rhythm of knowing, when to go up and
Mm,
kind of challenge the person hitting the ball, and when to go back to make sure that if your partner, who's now the baseliner, hits at the net person, where the net person makes a great play, or your partner maybe didn't hit the greatest shot, at least you have a chance to defend it. So it's super important, because if you just stand there like a chess piece, and you're not making these moves, you're missing opportunities to poach, and you're also missing opportunities to defend.
mhm.
So we've all heard this before, I think, a lot, but I really like the way that Jorge demonstrates it in Tennis Con 8, where he went out and he filmed on the court And the way he had his players learn this was to, when the baseliner hits the other baseliner, the baseliner on that side catches the ball to make sure that, okay, you've moved up in front of the ball. And then
Mm,
when they hit it cross the other way, then the other person's supposed to move back and are up, and then, you move back. So it
yeah.
gives you that timing to where you can understand, like, okay, now I understand this. This is the doubles dance. And it's easy to understand concepts to where you're like, okay, I get I'm supposed to do that, but it's hard to then actually do it, especially in a match. So I love this because lots of tips that you hear, like, okay, I got to do that. But then you're in a match, things are moving too fast. You never get it to where, slowing it down, having the ball caught and hit back and forth. And now we got it. Okay, now let's do a
Mm,
rally slow. Okay, now we have it. Now let's play some points. So it's just a great progression he shows.
hmm. Yeah, so this is coming up for TennisCon 8. This is
This coming up for
okay.
TennisCon 8. Yeah, this is a
Okay.
new one.
I'm definitely going to watch that because this is a concept that I've actually struggled to teach myself. Like we ran a doubles camp in New York several weeks ago, and I taught it two different ways. I taught it where the player kind of tracks the ball. So when the ball's back at the baseline and your partner's hitting, you're back in the service box. But when the ball's on the other baseline and your opponent's hitting, you're forward in the service box. And like that works for some people. But then with other players, I told them, okay, look at the other net player. And if they're moving back, then you're forward. If they're moving forward, then you're back. But I haven't found like a clean solution for this. And it sounds like Jorge might have at least something towards that.
This is a really clean solution, and it's one of the toughest things to teach. It's a concept that,
Yeah.
again, is easy to understand, but to then get players to do it
Hmm.
is really hard. And Jorge admits, and this guy's a master professional. He's like, I've tried to
Yeah.
teach this for years, and I finally came up with this drill, and this has worked the best.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely watching this one. That's awesome. Okay, number three is Ian Westermann's Angels in the Outfield. What is
Yeah,
that?
Ian gave a great presentation. Again, it's from this year, so not
Okay.
everything is from previous tennis cons I have on the list. And what I loved was he didn't call it Angels in the Outfield, but I'm calling Angels in the Outfield. To where uh, he showed some really strong 4-5-5-0 players that play on. He's got a YouTube channel also called Real Tennis. I don't know if you've checked that out. And uh, one of the players that a lot of people might recognize his name is Scott. He's in his 50s. The guy's really, really good, and he's playing with other players at his level. And so they showed when lobs would go over someone's head. And at recreational tennis, especially 4-0 and below, we're always worried more like, was that my ball or your ball? What side should I be on, and where should I go? Where
Mm,
Ian said, look, they're not really doing that at this level. They're always naturally both moving towards the ball. So the lob's going up, both, maybe one player is more responsible than the other player, and we're not going to really get into that now. But he basically said, look at the advanced level. They're both gravitating towards the ball. And when I did this interview with him, I happened to go to a Braves game. And I
mm,
noticed that when there was a pop fly, even if it went to the, left fielder, usually the center fielder was pretty close most of the time to back them up in case they didn't catch it, if there was any kind of confusion.
mm.
So that was kind of his point, is like, look, don't always be so concerned with, is it on your side, their side, my ball. He's like, look at how the players are going. They're clearly sometimes crossing way over the middle line, where sometimes we just divide the court in two sections. Like, this is my side, that's your side. You must have messed up because the ball passed you on your side.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's basically saying, don't look to play the blame game. Like, well, that wasn't my fault because it was not, it was on their side. It's like, you want to be instinctive. You want to flow to the ball. Of course, there are certain balls that should be one person's ball over the next, but the more you're just gravitating towards the ball and then knowing where to go after, let's say your partner hits it, then that would be another thing. After they backed up their partner, if their partner got it, then they would know exactly where to run to basically cover the next shot. So I thought it was really,
Yeah.
really awesome because he showed it. He just didn't talk it. He showed it in our interview, and I thought it was great.
That's cool. Yeah, I was working on that basically that exact lesson the other day with a college level team. So this is not even 4-0 or lower. These are like 5-5, 6-0 players. Um, and yeah, I think that even at that level, what you talked about, they gravitate towards the ball, I think better than maybe the lower level players do, but they were still having trouble as to where to go after the shot is hit. So in this case, the ball dropped, the player at the net couldn't get to the overhead, so they let it bounce. Then the baseline player had a forehand, but then they weren't sure which side to be on afterwards.
Hmm.
There's a lot at play there, and I think that uh, finding those instincts and working with your partner on it is super, super important. And a lot of that communication comes before you even step onto the court, to figure out your ideal situations and court positions. So, um, number 4 here, Roy Emerson, play for your partner. And then it looks like you've
Yes.
got a little bonus here as well.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorites. He's like, you play doubles for your partner. Yeah, I got to interview Roy. He was part of some of our first tennis cons. I also made a course called Legends Guide to Tennis Mastery. I also got to play at the Tennis Fantasy Camp. So, I mean, I've heard him say this a bunch. Tennis Fantasy Camp, if you don't know about it, they do in October. It's all men, like 100 plus men, and you play for a legend. So, like the year I played for Roy on his team, one of my other coaches was Rod Laver. So, I mean, just imagine that. And what he meant by that, and as I really think back at my junior and especially college career, when you more play doubles in college, I can say I probably didn't fully understand this because a lot of people start out playing tennis in singles. So you're always thinking of yourself and what's a good shot and what feels good right now. What shot if I hit would feel good? Where's the highlight? One of the
Hmm.
most exciting things to do in doubles is to pass someone up the alley. Like it's like a slam dunk in basketball. And not to say you should never do it, but we kind of sometimes maybe do it too much or we do it at the wrong time. And so Roy basically said, you don't play doubles for yourself and your own highlights. You're always trying to think, is this shot going to set up my partner for success? Is it going to give them a poach? Is it going to keep them safe at the baseline?
Hmm.
And even going back to Gigi, one of the most interesting things she ever told in interviews, and she's done this more than once, is she said, I didn't particularly enjoy playing with Martina Navratilova, even though she won a Grand Slam with her. And the point she made was, it was an honor to play with her. I liked her. We're friends. But number one, if we lost, it's kind of my fault because she's Martina Navratilova. And I was more new on the tour. So it's like, oh, it must have been Gigi Fernandez's fault. And plus, she said, Martina was so talented that she would choose shots often that she wasn't expecting as her doubles partner. So she
Mm.
felt that she was off balance and sometimes left out to dry because she's like, I'm surprised you hit that shot, because if you hit it on this other side or maybe at the person's feet or whatever Gigi thought would have been the right doubles play, I would have felt more comfortable and in place and ready to make a play. So
Mm.
that's what that means, playing for your partner. And I think it's definitely something you have to really focus on because let's face it, when we wake up in the morning, we're playing a match. I don't know about you, Will, but if I'm going to play a match, I'm excited, I'm pumped up, and I'm thinking about me. I want to play well. I want to walk off if people are going to be there watching, I want people to come up and say, man, Pete, you played great today. I'm sorry. That's just the way I look at things. But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the best doubles trait to always be looking for the highlights and to get all the aces and everything. Lots of times there's a better shot you can play that's less glamorous that helps your partner more. And the more you do that as a doubles player, you're going to win more matches.
Mm.
Now,
I like that.
yeah. And another thing that Roy said, he goes, you should never miss a return. He's basically like, his mindset was like, don't miss a return in doubles. Of course, he's got a big sense of humor, so he's joking a little bit, but he's kind of serious about it as well. He's like, look, in doubles, get the ball back, make them play balls. If
Yeah.
you want to break serves. And then the final tip is the Aussies. If you ever went to a tennis fantasy camp, if you're out there and you happen to be listening, like I actually went to that because a lot of people who are, out there over 40, they've gone to this over the years. And the Aussies have a great sense of humor and they often kind of make fun of each other, but they know that it's lighthearted.
Hmm.
And in tennis, we know how nervous we can get. And one thing Roy would say, to his partner, but joking, just trying to break up the tension, he'd be like something like, if you decide you want to make a return, I won't be angry. So now to some people that would hurt their feelings and that would send them into a tailspin. But Aussie to Aussie, they would kind of like laugh at each other, like, all right, man,
Yeah.
I get you. And that would loosen them up.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The play for your partner phrase is interesting, and I think there's like specific questions that, well, I guess to take it back to what you said earlier. So when I wake up and do have a match that day, I think you're right. Like I go into the match thinking, okay, I want to walk away from this match knowing, like feeling good about how I played and knowing I did everything I could to win. The thing that drives me the most crazy is when I go out and play a match and I make strategic errors. I don't mind double faulting. I don't like it, but I don't mind it. It's just an execution error. But if I, don't recognize during the match that we should have been playing two back on the return and I realize it after, or I hit that down the line shot when I shouldn't be and I'm going for too much, that drives me crazy. So I think this is one of those questions that maybe I start asking myself after each point or each game, periodically, was I playing for my partner there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can help you improve your shot selection and your court positioning and all this strategy over time. So I like that a lot. So the next one, number five, is for me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
It's
not you, it's me approach.
yeah. So we did an interview last week, and you said something that really I thought was pretty ingenious. To where, just like you said, you just mentioned like you really like strategy, you really like analyzing the matches, making in-game adjustments, and now most people who figure themselves to be a great tactician, they often will be thinking, I'm a great tactician. My partner's a little more experienced. I should go tell them, hey, why don't you stand over here? Or why don't you hit over here? Or let's poach, like basically being the conductor and saying, let's do this because I know better. and
Yeah.
and I love how you basically would turn it around. You would say something like, I'm having trouble hitting this serve over there. Do you mind if we play I formation for a little bit so that, you can help me hold serve easier because I'm struggling with this.
Hmm.
And also you mentioned one time that somebody you played with didn't have the best backhand volley. So you said something like, I'm kind of struggling with this right here. And plus, like, you've got an amazing forehand volley. Do you mind if we run this play? So I love how you kind of take this where you lead off by saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. Do you mind if we try that? Versus like, you're kind of hopeless. So why don't you go just stand
Yeah.
there and I'll take care of everything, which unfortunately we know happens a lot on a doubles
Hmm.
court at the recreational level and maybe even at the pro level.
Yeah. I can attest to the fact that it definitely happens at the pro level as well. Probably a little bit less often, but I know that that's happened at the pro level as well. Yeah, I think the biggest thing from that is just trying to find a way to get to the same result that you want. So in the backhand volley example, it was a match where I was serving from the ad court and I was struggling to win points serving to the ad court. And I know my partner at the net can't be super aggressive because they have their backhand volley in the middle. So instead of saying like, hey, we need to hide your backhand volley here, so let's try Australian formation, I'll say, hey, I'm struggling in this ad court rally. I think I might be better rallying from the deuce court. So let's try Australian formation. Plus, you have an awesome forehand volley. So that'll get you access to your forehand volley a little bit more often. So that's two wins there. So it's just the exact same result. It's the exact same thing. We're just rephrasing it in a way that's kind of building up your partner and building up the team rather than trying to place blame or tear someone down. So
It's
thank
it's genius. And even if you're the better player or the better tactician, one thing everybody's got to understand is you need your partner who's maybe not at your level playing wise. You need them to make big shots. Just like a
hmm
basketball team needs everybody on the floor at some point to hit a big shot that could
Yep.
turn the match around. And so if you make your partner feel small out there, um, you're going to get the opposite result of what you want.
hmm 100%. And it's not going to be as fun either.
No.
So so number 6 here, Gigi's Stagger.
Yeah. So this is a really, the more I've actually used this in my own coaching, I really realize how effective it is. Um, so I first heard it at TennisCon where she talked about, teams need to stagger, which I'll explain in a second. Then I went and helped her with a Bryan Brothers camp. They ran the stagger there. Then we did TennisCon live. We did the stagger there. Then I did a doubles camp with Maribon Aranched, who runs the Tennis Summit, which is also a great event. And we
hmm
did the stagger there. And once you see it click with people, it's really cool to see them move and to see them cover shots that they don't usually make and to see them working as a team without even really having to communicate. And it's a very simple thing. It's basically when you're both at the net, you shouldn't too often be dead even with each other as far as, at the same level where if you were to look over to your right or your left, that they're staying right the same spot as you. You need
hmm
one person a little up, one person a little back in the box. And basically, whatever side of the ball, the court the ball is on, that person needs to be more forward and the other person needs to play a little back so that the person more forward can challenge the ball, get to the middle net strap easier to get a poach. And if there is a lob, that person who's further back can have a better angle to possibly run down a lob and also just keep more balls in play. And it's
hmm
really cool how it works, that stagger. And what I found interesting is she's not that concerned with telling people to, in fact, she kind of is a little bit against it, to follow the ball. We've always been taught at the net, you follow the ball.
Yeah.
And over the years, I think she just found it to be too confusing. And I think one of her pet peeves is recreational players tend to overcover the ball. So if the ball is moving towards the alley, basically the students usually would go, okay, I need to cover the ball, so I'm going to get right in the alley. And she would be like, no, no, no. Now basically what we're doing is we're opening up the middle a lot often.
Yeah.
You have no chance now to poach and be effective. You're just completely out of the play now. So she's like, I don't really focus on following the ball. And what I found was, and when I first heard that, I'm like, I don't know about that because I mean, you kind of need the shade. I call it shading to the ball. You kind of do need the shade to the ball. But what I found is the more I ran with my students, they would instinctually start to do that, where they'd shade a little bit without being so exact in the terms of like following the ball. So they did
Mm.
start to naturally shade more towards the ball and not overcover. And there wasn't many passing shots really when I watched these live ball points. So it's really, really cool. If you're listening and you don't quite get the visual, definitely either through one of the tennis cons or she's got it on video. If you ever go train with her, the stagger is super effective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I think she mentioned in my podcast episode with her a while back. And uh so for people listening, to clarify, basically if you're cross court from the ball, you're the player that's further back and you're the one
Mm-hmm.
kind of covering the lob a bit more because the cross court lob is the easiest lob because you have more court to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So you give up the down the line lob a bit more because it's a shorter court, it's a lower percentage shot. And I think this is super important for the club level where we're not as agile as we used to be. We're not as fast as we used to be. So we can't, like a lot of the pros do, especially on the men's side, like you see behind me, both get right on top of the net, because those guys can get back to the baseline so fast. You can't put pace on a lob, right? So a 3-5 lob is the exact same as an ATP top 10 lob. It's not any faster or slower. What's faster is the player running back to cover it. So as club level players, we do have to, at times, against certain teams, decide how to handle that. And this stagger solution is a great solution for that.
That's
So
really, really good. I like that. I've never thought about that. The lob is the same speed, but the
yeah,
players are not. And that is very, very good point.
it's something because I've been big on the lob return recently, and I'm in the middle of writing a blog post on it and trying to make sense of it all. Because some of these thoughts like come out when I start writing, and I was trying to figure out like at the pro level at the US Open this year, I was watching some doubles matches with Craig O'Shaughnessy, and we both noticed that all these players are using the lob return off of first serve a ton. This is at the ATP level. So I was like, if they're doing it, like, why can't we do this at the club level? And then I'm trying to like factor in all these different things. So like they've obviously got better overheads, which means we should be using it more often because we're hitting against worse net players. So there's a whole list of factors we could go through, but that'll be for another day. So let's move on to number 7, Will Hamilton's racket below the wrist poach tell.
Yes. This is really good. Will is known for his playbooks,
Hmm.
but he came out with something called like the little book of tells or something like that. So they're just little things that you can see that think about like poker, right? That's a tell.
Hmm.
Like, okay, they're just showing me a tell, so I can probably do this. And so what one of the tells was is that if your partner who's returning can hit a return low at a certain volley or someone who's coming to the net, and you see that their racket has to then go below the wrist. So when we think about a good volley or an easier volley, and you think about your hands, the racket head is usually above your wrist. Well, if it's low and below your wrist, he's like, that person, when they see that at the net, should step up to the middle and basically pinch or poach almost every time. And even if you sometimes the person gets, where they see it early and they make a great shot and they burn you down the alley, he's like that's actually good because the odds of them being able to do that consistently, that could give them a false sense of confidence. So they might keep trying to do that because they know you're like going every time the racket, the wrist goes below the racket, and they'll probably just start making a ton of unforced errors.
Hmm.
So it's really kind of a gotcha play. Like you keep trying to go up the alley because I'm moving. You're probably going to miss a lot or be like 50-50 on it. Remember, all you got to do is break once or serve once or twice, hopefully, ideally in a match to win the set. Or I'm going to get to basically cross that middle and absolutely crush the short play.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good one. I think one of the things that's required for this that people have to learn and train themselves on is to have their eyes forward at the net on the player. A lot of us at the net look back and watch our partner hit, or we're kind of following the ball. But if in the serve and volley example, if my partner's returning, I'll watch the ball land because I do like to do that to call it long for my partner. And then my eyes need to immediately go to the players on the other side of the net. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to see that racket drop early enough. And then you're not going to be able to poach or pinch early enough. You're going to be a little bit late on that. So you've got to get
Mm-hmm.
your eyes forward on those players. And then, yeah, on that serve and volley player, the racket head drops, and that's your cue or your tell to kind of move towards the middle. So last one here, another one from Gigi, her singles approach strategy for doubles.
Yeah. So again, I think as tennis players, we always crave excitement, and the alley in doubles since it's there, it's like catnip, so we want to pass up the line. Lots of times we want to hit a great like angle approach shot that we aim towards the alley, and certainly lots of times it's a good play because you get them off the court and you can then hit to basically where they had to leave. But Gigi says, I want my recreational players to, when they get an approach shot, don't be aiming for the alley. Keep your approach shots in the singles court because yes, it can feel awesome to hit that shot, to get that alley ball. And sometimes some good things can happen. But what happens more often than not that she found is that because you're getting the alley, now all of a sudden, what's the rule? You return an angle with an angle. So you're creating this angle, and now the person who's going to have the passing shots, they generally have more angles to hit, and it gets tougher as a unit to cover all the angles. Lots of times there's a gap, there's a break somewhere in that court to where your opponent can see that and often pass you. Where if you keep it in the singles court, you cut down on all those angles, there's less places for the passing shot person to go. There's a greater chance that now you and your partner, especially if you're in that stagger position, are going to be able to get a really good look at a volley. You're going to be able to volley above your waist, and now you're in the driver's seat. I got to interview John Newcomb, and he basically says, when I was playing, if I had a volley above my waist, I'm not losing the point. Like, I'm going to win the point every time if I get a volley. So that's the goal. Like, if I can set myself up, be my partner in that, make the opponent have to hit up, we get to hit down, great things are going to happen.
Yeah, I think in general, I really like that a lot. And I think in general for club players, there's almost no time ever that I would recommend actually aiming for the doubles alley. Approach shots, certainly. And that makes a ton of sense. And then you get into the stagger formation like you're talking about. You're taking away their angles, not only to hit a passing shot, but you're also creating an easier angle for them to lob off of too. If you take them, say, super wide in the deuce court, they can just lob it back up cross court, and they've got tons of room to work with on that lob. Whereas if you hit more through the middle, that lob angle isn't really there as much. So really good advice there from Gigi. Awesome. So that's all 8 doubles lessons. So Pete, tell us, when does TennisCon 8 start? So today, people are listening to this, it's going to be Wednesday, the 23rd. Tell us when TennisCon 8 starts and anything else we should know.
Yeah, so TennisCon 8 is going to start October 28th. That's a Monday. We basically go Monday. We also have a kickoff party on the 27th at night. But we basically go through the week, usually Monday to Saturday or Sunday. We give you guys a chance to kind of binge watch it on the weekend. But all the sessions will be released Monday through Friday. We have some great pre-recorded stuff to where the coaches go on the court. Like, I thought one thing that was so awesome this year is I got Brady Height, and his last name is perfect because he's like, I think he looks like he's 6'8", something like that. He actually gave a lesson. I rolled the dice. I'm like, hey, Brady, what do you think if you do a lesson on how to beat tall players? He's like, I'll do it. So he gives secrets on how to beat tall players. Ryan Reed's
that's cool.
Ryan Reed's talking about how to master the net. Jorge gave a great doubles lesson. You give a great doubles lesson. I mean, there's just so many amazing sessions that really, if you take advantage of one session, maybe even 5 minutes of one session, if you truly take advantage of it, use it, practice it, eat, breathe, live it, you're going to get your money's worth just off of one lesson. But to think that you got 40 master classes, and I think that's what's becoming more and more valuable. If you go on Instagram, you go on YouTube, everything's basically trending towards a short video. And they're great. They're like nice little bites you can eat. And you go, that was yummy. That's a good tip. That was fun to watch. My dopamine's flying high. But it's really not going to help you out there in a match, where if you watch a lot of these master classes, it's really taking the time to explain, the science behind everything, why you do it, the process on how to do it, the drills on how to practice it, the things that can go wrong, the things that go right. So you really go, okay, now I really understand this concept, and I see the roadmap ahead of how to get myself to the next level. And that's what I just so grateful for, to be running this event.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah, I'm looking through all the talks right now, and yeah, I mean there's nutrition on here, Pilates, like stuff that's tennis related, but kind of something you might not expect from something called Tennis Con. But then of course serve checkpoints, how to hit a kick serve, two-handed backhand masterclass, a bunch of different stuff here. So
Yeah.
we'll link to all of this in the show notes so people can sign up. Again, it's totally free for a limited time, and then if you want to upgrade, you can do that for I don't remember the price exactly, but it's just something ridiculously low for the amount of access to these coaches that you get. And then on those what are they called, products at the end, you can contribute to the Hurricane Relief Fund as well.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
that's a really
After you purchase, I do this every year. I give some really great bonus training that you can
mm,
access for a steep discount. They're basically called one-time offers. Like you're not going to see it again that low. But as a thank you for signing up and getting lifetime, I give you some of my best stuff for a super low price if you want more training. And what we're doing this year, that's 100% going to Metropolitan Ministries so that we can help people get food, shelter, water, get back on their feet from the hurricanes that have
yeah,
devastated Florida.
that's awesome. Yeah, I know they need it for sure. So awesome that you're doing that. All right. Well, thanks, Pete, for coming on. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'll include everything in the show notes again, and I will talk to you all soon.
Thank you.